Hey guys, what is up? Lefty back here again, and thanks for checking out the video. So I wanted to do a quick little video as kind of the world has gone crazy, or at least America has gone crazy in the past couple days, and just kind of give my 2 cents on sort of the events that transpired and obviously kind of where I think we're going as a country. So yeah, let's get right into it. So first of all, people that are not following me on Twitter or X or whatever you want to call it, I do have a link down below. As these events were unfolding on Saturday, which I do have 2 jobs. I have a full-time job, and then I have a part-time gig that I do every couple times a month just for some extra spending cash and such. And as these events were transpiring, I was actually tweeting out kind of my thoughts. Just felt the need to. I don't know what it was, but just decided to tweet it out and stuff like that. So if you guys want to go relive my specific experience, I don't know why you would, but if you were, and if you wanted to, you can go do that. But so I was at my second gig when all this stuff was coming out, and I believe the first sort of like thing that popped up on my phone was either like CNN or fucking Washington, some newspaper, something like that, where it was like, I don't remember exactly what it was, but it had the effect of Trump fell at rally, loud noises, he was rushed off stage, something like that. And immediately my jaw fucking like dropped, or like my heart just like stopped for a second, like, oh shit. And I was just hoping to God that it was not really what it was kind of seeming to be. Like, I hope it wasn't anybody like trying to kill this dude. I hope it wasn't I was hoping it was just some sort of like inconsequential, somebody threw fireworks to try to be funny, or a car backfired and everybody sort of panicked or something like that. Just something stupid like that. And then as more stuff was coming out, it's like, nope, definitely not the case. Eventually it became to, there actually were pops heard at Trump rally. And then again, the next thing I seen was he fell and then he was taken off stage. So no longer is it just loud noises, now it's pops, like gunfire. And then that eventually turned into, oh, it's a BB gun or some shit like that. I think my reaction was like, yeah, that's fucking stupid. That's literally like suicide by POTUS. If you were to bring a BB gun and try to shoot the president with a BB gun to be like, because hey, fuck this guy, tink tink. Yeah, you are not leaving that rally alive, my friend. So that's, I didn't really buy that, but that's just what I seen on Tinder that was trending and stuff. And it was fucking blowing my mind, the people that were believing that stupidity. But anyway, events transpired, the videos started coming out, and because I thought at this point that there actually were gunshots, Trump ducked, and as he fell down, he hit his head and cracked it open and got a cut and stuff like that. So then the actual video comes out, and you can hear the pop, pop, pop. Trump grabs his ear and then falls down. I'm like, oh shit, no, that's exactly what I did not want it to be, and that's exactly what I feared. So eventually, things were just kind of coming in and out throughout the night, and I was following him again. I was tweeting it down below and stuff like that. And so, obviously, at this point, everybody kind of knows what went down and stuff. So, kind of interesting from that. So, what do I think about this? Well, first and foremost, I did make a video not too long ago that I've been sitting on, just sort of my sort of predictions and opinions of what's going to transpire in election time. I may have to go and delete that, as it is a little bit outdated, at least with the events that have already transpired. So we will see. Basically, I was just kind of laying out my sort of idea and my plans for me personally and my family about just having everything that I wanted to get in my place, my domicile, if you will, is I wanted to get all that done by September, probably at the latest. We already have plenty enough stuff here, but I just wanted a little bit more, just in case if shit gets a little bit crazy. Obviously, a little bit slow on the gun, but here we are. So, what do I think will happen now, and where do I think we go as a country? So really, really interesting things that kind of have transpired here. First and foremost, what has come out about the shooter is still a little questionable at this point. One thing, as I was taking a moment, which I kind of encourage everybody to do if this is getting a little bit too much to you guys, is to take some time off of social media, take some breathers, kind of sit with yourself, not naked, of course, unless you want to, and then just kind of process everything, and then quietly to yourself without influence of everybody just kind of emotionally responding and all this other shit. So, but in my thinking, this is what I sort of thought from the get-go. And again, we don't really know too much about this person. But one thing that I think was sort of worrying me on the back end, because once Trump is fine, well, fine as can be after, taking around to the ear. One thing that was always kind of playing in the back of my mind is copycats and also retaliation. Now, retaliation is kind of an interesting one because copycat, at least from the way I'm looking at it, I don't believe there are going to be any sort of like copycat attempts, at least not before he's elected president. Because I think at this point, it's all but solidified that he's probably going to be the next president of the United States, at least the way the poll number stands, and I can kind of get into that a little bit as well. But I think it's pretty safe to say that he's probably going to win the election. So, and by the way, that fucking dude, everybody's already said it, but the fucking dude that took a bullet to the ear came up and just said, when I first seen the video, I said, fuck you, and like he was beating his fist at the dude that shot at him, but it was fight or whatever, and then like America or something like that. But at first I was like, holy shit, the dude takes a round to the ear and was like, fuck you. So, pretty epic, pretty based. But getting back on track, the retaliation is one thing that I still fear, and I don't know what that looks like. At the beginning, I was kind of thinking if this dude is some part of group, like BLM, Antifa, name those kind of groups. If he was actually part of these groups and kind of wore that as his like persona on social media sort of thing, you could see people retaliate against those groups. So if there's a BLM, or if there's an Antifa riot or demonstration or protest, whatever, you may start to see people just start showing up to those protests and just shooting those people. I don't know. Because at this point, no one really knows exactly what's going to happen, but I can easily foresee that. Now, I think everybody has to realize that we were 1 inch away from the country being radically fucking broken. Luckily, Trump survived and took it like a champ. For as much as somebody in that predicament can do. And definitely God had a hand in this, because that dude turned his head just at the right moment to clip his ear. And if he was looking the other way, because he was looking this way and then he turned and it clipped his ear, well, if he's looking that way, the back of his head is probably going to be missing. And we probably would have lost him in there, and the country probably would have been irrevocably broken. And what would have happened from that point, I don't know. Everybody was like online, like, oh, a civil war would have started and stuff like that. And I was really thinking about it, and it's like, okay. And even now, some people are like, this is how you start a civil war and all that. And it's like, okay, let's just say that is true. Who are you fighting? You know what I mean? Who are you going to go kid up and just start marching in the streets? I mean, and who are you fighting? Are you just going to fight Democratic politicians? Are you going to go to these Antifa protests, riots, whatever the hell, and just start shooting people? Like, there is no sides. So that's why when people were talking, and I got into this in the other video about, civil war and stuff like that, the problem with war is you have to identify your enemy. And if the enemy is not identified, you're just going to start shooting random people if you actually want to proceed with some sort of conflict. But I think the thing still remains that the country, while not irrevocably broken, is definitely fracturing, especially socially. So our trajectory from here, you've basically put a roof on it. If you want to think like a stock market chart or something like that, the ability for our country to heal itself is now such that it can't get to where it has been in the past. At least not in my opinion. Not unless there's some crazy like rebirth of country value or something like that, or if some sort of like world war would break out and that would unite the whole country again. I think that's something that could happen, and whether or not somebody sees that as an opportunity to reunite the country and pushes us into a world war, that's kind of an interesting idea too, that I just sort of had. Like there's that meme going on where the world hates everybody, but if there was like an alien invasion coming, everybody would unite against it. So it's that sort of thing. Everybody is at each other's throats until there's a common enemy to fight, and sometimes you just kind of have to create one to create that unity at some points in history. So, but where do I see us going? I don't really know. Like I said, I've given some of my worries and stuff like that, with people retaliating and trying to do some sort of copycat things. And then once a couple events happen, then you will have a cascade of chaos, essentially. And that I don't know what that really breeds long term in terms of like around 6 months. And here's another thing, as I was pointing to the polls, as I said, I think Trump is almost solidified as the next president of the United States. There is a possibility now. Everybody was looking at the polls, and in 2016, Trump won, surprisingly. Everybody thought Biden was going to lose again. Trump lost. If the polls are, and if nothing else changes, and if the polls stay as they are, and somehow Trump still loses, I don't know if anything else can be construed as election fraud, but that would almost piss off everyone in the country. I don't, or at least, people on the more conservative side, right-wing leaning. I just don't know how that would happen. So if they were, so to speak, and this is just going off my assumption that there's a lot of people that really, really, really do not want Trump to get back into office. There's people that will try to murder the dude. Biden's DOJ has gone after him, trying to put him in jail to make him non-electable. There basically is no more limits to what this dude will have to face in order to get back in office. And even if he's elected, he still faces that possibility of assassination without a doubt. So the idea that they would not try to steal the election again if they did in the first place, which there has been some evidence that there was, certain things, but to overthrow the entire nation election, I don't really know. But if Biden wins later in November, I don't know what else you can come away from that with, besides something's a whole lot of fuckery going on. But like I said in the video that I may or may not do whatever, I'm getting my preps in order. I've actually accelerated a few things. I was watching ammo prices and kind of ammo availability. Not much really moved in that. A lot of things are going on economically right now, which is why you're seeing a lot of deals and a lot of like things that are like surprisingly cheap. And you're like, oh, that's kind of weird. Basically, the country is headed for some sort of recession, and that is also kind of not a good mixture to be in, right? And once again, it's that whole sort of like unifying worry that I have. When you have social disturbances and unrest and unruliness, and you have the social fabric of the country basically going down, you have economic issues on the horizon, deep recession possibility, you may have to kickstart the country by getting yourself into some shit. And I don't know when that will be, or if that is even a thing that will happen, but that's just sort of what I fear. I don't ever really, and real quick, and I'll just kind of end the video on this. Everybody's, again, talking about Civil War. Again, there's sides, but there's not actual groups forming sides, right? It's more of like, war is kind of a weird thing. It's a mutual agreement to attack each other, and everybody just kind of throws their hands up in the air in terms of like enforcing laws. Like, yeah, there's rules in war, but it's kind of like this weird like gentleman's agreement to just fight to the death, and whoever wins, wins. I don't know. It's kind of a war is kind of a funny thing, honestly, or at least kind of a what do you want to say, like a modern war, right? Kind of the old school days where people just start invading towns and cities and all that, and just start destroying shit's a little bit somewhat different nowadays. But I don't think Civil War is really a likely outcome. As I said, I think it's more of a social skirmish rather than a full-on war. I think, again, you have pockets of people going at it. And honestly, I think the closest thing you can think of is kind of like a gang turf war. You're going to have pockets of groups of people. You're going to have, not necessarily infighting, but in surrounding areas. Like, for example, you got around here in Minnesota, you got Minneapolis, and then you got everywhere else, basically. You got Minneapolis, which is just like the fucking hub of liberal and leftist people and ideology. You have a couple of suburbs off of that, which are pretty left-wing as well. And almost everywhere else around that, pretty much right-wing. You could have things going into more of the conservative areas, right-leaning areas, whatever you want to call it, and start doing shit, or vice versa. And then at that point, who fucking knows? Eventually it could get to a point where people can't go to work in these areas, and then at that point, yeah, I don't really know what happens. You can call on the National Guard and all these other law enforcement agencies, but if it's happened throughout the world, might get a little tricky for life to continue with any sort of normalcy, or at least the normalcy that we're used to. So that's pretty much it. That was kind of a quick little rambly video. Yeah, like I said, the country was this far away from being irrevocably broken, and I think we're still maintaining that track, although we haven't broken yet. I think we're still fine if everybody can cool the fuck down a little bit. And yeah, that's pretty much it. I don't know what else to say. I mean, last thought. One thing that I've always bugged me about the 2020 election is when people say that the 2020 election was stolen from Trump. If you honestly believe that, then you should grab a gun, right? Because if you say the election was stolen, that means democracy is no longer in session in the United States of America, and you need to use the Second Amendment to take back the country. So I don't like when people say that the 2020 election was stolen. There's evidence of shit going on there, but for the whole election to be stolen, I mean, I personally would need a little bit more evidence of that. On the flip side, if you keep calling your political rival Orange Hitler and a legitimate threat to this country and democracy for over 8 years now, you cannot be surprised when some crazy person takes you up on your word, right? And you can also not be surprised when, again, whatever, it's sort of, there's been events in the past where that shooter went to the baseball game and, you know, shot the Republicans and all the stuff like that. People on the left are not responsible for those shootings, but I believe they are culpable to a certain extent. Because like I said, you keep calling somebody's fucking Hitler, it's like, well, what do you do with Hitler? You keep him from coming to power by any means necessary, right? So that's pretty much it. Anyway, enough rambling from me. Thank you guys for watching. If you want to support the channel, links are down below. Twitter's down there and all that fun stuff. But yeah, I got more videos coming up, and yeah, be good.